So how many people have exams that use multiple choice questions? Please look around. Just look around. That's a lot of us. We work with a lot of clients that use that as well. But guess what though? The multiple choice question has gone under attack a lot. We get a lot of things like, there's no context. How can you test that? It's not as valid as it should be. There's no, you can't represent the targeted construct. It's going to take too many words to do it. There's so many things. How many people have heard that about multiple choice questions? On the other end, the most data we have is on multiple choice questions. So what do? So one of the things we're trying to do at Prometric is to use multimedia to help support multiple choice questions, to give more context, make it broader, such that you could test things that you couldn't really test with a traditional multiple choice question. With the traditional, you probably have to have a paragraph to explain the context and set the stage before you ask your questions. But we all know that under exam pressure, people don't read right, people don't think right, their focus, their attention span is very limited. So how do you write a very good question and still test everything with a multiple choice question? So I'll give you examples of how we're using the high fidelity image viewer to create image distractors. So instead of using a bunch of words, we just give them a picture, give them a media, and that's the answer option. That's the answer choice. So I'll show you that. Also how we use video embedded support in the stimulus and the question. So when they get the question, they get a video with it. So it gives them context. And then they're like, oh, I do that every day. It feels normal. It feels very relatable. It doesn't feel like an exam. So I'll share that with you. And those are selected response items. So think about your true-false questions. Think about your multiple choice. Select one. Those are selected response items, and I'll show you how we do that in the exam. Also, we have this other type of exam items called the Figural response items. So that's when your candidates have to interact in some way with the screen. Think about things like hotspot, drag and place. Now the precision is higher for that because you make them do a lot more. You just give them a picture. Look at that, for example. We know there's only one correct answer, but look at the number of incorrect options. It's not 4. It's more than a multiple choice question. So while the precision for your key is right there, for example, they could choose anywhere. So that way, you can't really guess. You either know it or you don't, in this case. So that helps you get a better sense of precision. And I'll share some of this with you, how we're using hotspot and drag and place questions. It will still help you get the response you need, but now the precision is higher because they could choose any of this as answers. Then we have the constructed response items. The CPA session earlier, I loved it. It was all about using things like multiple file attach. You can't guess there. You really have to just know what you're doing. I'll show you an example of how we're using Surpass to eliminate guesswork. So you couldn't say, all right, I don't know, A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D. I just choose B. There's nothing like that. You have to actually create a file and upload a file. I'll show you that. And then lastly, we have this group called the simulation-based assessments. This is really fascinating because the test taker's action is what prompts a response. I'll walk you through some items that we've created that are fabulous. Think about architecture. How would you write a multiple choice architectural exam item? It's tough because you would have to describe all of these things. I'll show you how we're using this to actually give them a virtual tour. They'll take a virtual tour of a building, of a neighborhood, and then they get a question, simple multiple choice question, and answer the question. But guess what though? The stimulus is so rich because you show them all of these things. They're thinking, I did that yesterday. I had a client. My client, that's exactly what I did. So it doesn't feel very much like an exam anymore. It feels like so relatable, and it helps you actually get what you want to get, which is evidence that they know what they're supposed to know. We don't really care whether they can read. Another argument we get is some of these questions is really a test of reading and interpreting. It takes all of that away. I'll also show you an example of how, for the ophthalmologists, you actually get an equipment they use every day at work. They get to work the equipment in the test center, and it feels like, oh yeah, I do that, easy. And they'll do it and give you the reading they would have done. They'll diagnose a patient like they would have done, all using technology. So these are ways, some out-of-the-box ways that we're using Surpass to help our clients accomplish their goal. And I'll take you into the exam demo now, and I hope everything works as it's supposed to. All right, so this exam created has 4 sections. I'm going to walk you through some of the examples. So the first section has the selected response items. So think about this. This is a question, and instead of answer choices, where they have to go through A, B, C, and D, they're actual images. So the candidate can go, oh yeah, I know that. I can interpret that. And then that's my answer. They click on the answer. And it's right there. It gives them images. To do this with words, you would have to explain a whole lot more to get them to select that answer, to describe the difference between those 4 graphics. But with the image, they just choose the answer. And then I can move on to my next question. Here's another one that gives them a question, which imagine if you wanted to describe this. Which exercise below demonstrates movement in the transverse plane? You would have to really describe the positioning of the person to get it. But here, just show them the pictures. Now they go, oh, I know that. By the way, I don't really know this, so I can just pick anything. But then imagine how that works. They can go, oh, yeah, totally, I know that. And they just pick the answer. And another thing, look at how clean that page is. It's not a lot of stimulus. It's straight to the point. If you know it, you're like, yep, that's it. If you don't know it, you're like, ooh, I don't know. I really don't know. And honestly, even for those who don't know, if they have an idea, when they see the pictures, it helps them figure it out and go, oh, actually, I think it's this one. So it's much better than the traditional ones. All right, I'll show you a third one. The third question, in this case now, they have a question. After reviewing the images, then select. Now look at all the options. Now let me click on the extras and you see how rich this becomes all of a sudden. There you go. All right, so this is the image viewer. Look at how we have all of these extras bundled into one, and they can actually click on it. They can say, ooh, I want to zoom in. What is that? I want to take a closer look. They could do all of that. They can say, okay, got it. Let me look at the and extra. So you could go back out and say, I want to look at this one. What's in here? Look at the and extra. They can move it. They have all these arrows. This was the image viewer they were talking about yesterday. See how you could use that. Just start to think about in your area how you can apply this knowledge for your items. Then I could click on the next mouth extra. I could go through all of these extras. This has a video embedded. So think about this. They have a 55-year-old obese female who was admitted with the acute AI. See the video. So I could just click on this, embed a video. This would have been a traditional multiple choice, but look at how the video presented that information, how that changes the context, how that gives them more to work with. And they say, oh, okay, I see that. Or wait a minute, do that again. Let me play that one more time. They could play that again, look at that and say, oh, I know what this is. This is the normal flow. And then they could go back in and say, got it, close that out, and I can answer my question. So these are your traditional selected response items. There's nothing different, traditional multiple choice. But by adding all of this additional features, it makes it richer. You can actually provide context and overcome some of the traditional problems we have in multiple choice. Now moving on to the next section, I'm going to show you some figurative response items. This was the one in the slide with the screenshot. So I could click here. If that's my answer, I could literally click anywhere for the hotspot item. Moving on to the next one. Here's another ultrasound. They can go in here and say, oh, I think that's where the baby is. Because I hope that's what they're asking me. And then you can move on to the next question. But you see how this changes the game. Now, that doesn't have to, most people think I can only use hotspot if we have images. But you could use it even for things like a form. Imagine this form now. If you tell them, oh, this is a tax form, you are maybe a tax preparer, you have to do this anyway, you're familiar with these forms, you use them every day. All right, what is the filing status? You can literally go there and click. This is a different way to use hotspot and to click on it. A lot of people only think hotspot when they think graphics, but think forms, think anything you have to select. And see how closer this is to somebody who does tax returns every day, for example. When they see this form, they're like, oh, I know that, I do that, I know what it is. And they just click on it and give you the answer. 2 more questions in this section. Here's another one. This is more, just click on it, show me where it is. The possibilities are endless, so you better know what you're doing. You can't guess, so you have to know what you're doing. So think about the precision of the data you get back. Now, in full transparency, one of the things that we're trying to understand is what to do with all of that data, because you get a lot of data on the back end. Right now, we just use the correct correct answer. But then maybe you want to take a closer look and say, how far away were people from the correct answer? Were they just random, or are they really close? Is there something we need to change, for example, maybe in the way we train people? So you can get a lot more data out of this that are traditional, did you get it right, did you not get it right type responses. It actually informs what you do going forward, because you're like, wait a minute, why is everybody selecting this area? Is there something we're not looking into? Is there some advancements coming? Or are people stuck in the past? What is it? So imagine the data you could get from this and what you could do with that for training, not just assessment. So it's bigger. It's getting bigger and bigger, the data you get from this. One more question with a Figural question. So look at this one, for example. This is the dragon place. Now, again, you better know what you're doing, or you could literally, the possibilities are endless. I could move this and drop it anywhere. I could be so wrong, I don't even know what I'm doing. Or I could be close to it, you know? And you decide on the back end, how do we score this? Do we give them credit for each one you get right? Or do you have to get everything right? You would know what's important in your field. But more than that, it gives you the idea of the kinds of people we're working with. Imagine if these are doctors. If they mix it all up, we probably don't want them operating on anybody because they're going to put stuff everywhere, you know? Or if it's just an area, again, you could say maybe we just need targeted training to help people get better. But this is the dragon place. Imagine how you could use this. It's fun. For the candidates, they almost forget they're taking a test because it's so relatable. They're kind of like playing with it. Move it, drop it. All right. So now I'm going to take you to the constructed response section. This will be more familiar. This is using the upload, the Word, Excel. They can launch Microsoft Word right in there, provide a narrative. They can construct a response like the CPE example we were talking about earlier. They can launch Excel and do their work, and then when they're done, they can upload the file right back into the system. Again, there's no way you could guess with that. The precision is really high. You have to do what you would do if you were called on to do the job. Now for the final section, which is really fun, and a lot of our clients are really loving this every day, is the simulation-based assessments. So I'm going to continue and show you what that looks like. So think about this question. It looks really simple. It's like, what do you want me to do? Determine the segment height for a progressive lens. So think ophthalmologist, glasses, those who use glasses. What happens when you go into the office? That's the question. But now see how much richer this becomes. When you click on this, okay, it launches on my screen. I have to drag it over. All right. So I present you the patient, and you're supposed to mark and measure their lens. And for those who do that every day, they're like, oh, yeah, I know that. Mr. Sue came into the office yesterday, and I just did that yesterday. You know? So in this case, they click continue. And just so you know how we did this on the back end, this is the URL source material. So you're pointing to a whitelisted site URL to actually pull the data. So that's how we did it on the back end when we built the exam. But let me show you how cool it is on the front end to the candidate. So they can scroll, see what other information you have for them. They're like, okay, all right, got it. I'm going to do that. So click continue. It loads the second page. This is where you actually have to mark and then measure. They go, oh, okay, got it. I want to get my marker out. So I click on my marker. It's not supposed to do that. There you go. There you go. And now it's time to mark. So I'm going to drag this over to the lens. I'm going to click on mark. This is right where I want that to be. Did you see the little line that came out? So now that I have my mark, now it's time to measure. So I place the mark. It's going to flip it, the screen. Now I want to measure. I'm going to grab my ruler and put it over there. Now this is what they do every day. So this is very normal for them. For me, I'm kind of having fun right now, just playing. But they know exactly where it should be. So they're like, oh, okay, 1.6. Got it. That's what I'm going to do. And then they go in here, put their reading right in there, what they just measured. So this is not presenting options. This is you doing what you do every day. You have a patient come in, mark, measure, give me the rating. So I'm just going to go, oh, this is a 3. And that's it. So I'm going to go down, see what else I have in there. I could check my answer. Like I said, this is pointing to a site. So whatever you want them to do, they could do it from there. And then I would go back up. And I would say, I'm done with that one. Or wait a minute, I want to go back. What was on the previous screen? Let me make sure I did that right. Let me mark that again. So they could literally do this again and again until they feel comfortable that they have the right thing. So right there, mark it. I want to go measure. I'm going to go to the ruler. That comes up, I go, measure. Now I feel better. It should be about 0.59. I guessed as much, you know. All right, so that's how they do that. And then you could go back. There are 10 examples of the same thing again and again here. So I'll just leave one. And then you could go back in here, and then I'm going to write my answer. My answer is 4. Now, this looks like very simple, but when I go there, I know what I just did, and then I provide my response. It gets even better. For the next question, now they have to determine the care reading for this patient. So they're like, okay, got it. I have to do that anyway, every day. So I'm going to drag this over so you can see what I see. This is my equipment. This is what I have to do. So I'm going to show you how that works. So I'm going to click next to actually start working with that. So it tells me step 1, what I need to do is set the ocular. So I'll go, okay, got it. I could do that. If I don't get it right, it's not going to move. So this is, imagine taking an exam with everybody watching you. Tuck off pressure. And then you cover that, and I was like, all right, next, let me go next. Now it's time to focus. Now look at that little plus. Now, again, like I said, this is not my expertise, but I'm going to have fun with it. So we're going to see how that plus comes into focus. That's what you're doing in this step. And if you don't get it right, you don't move on. That's how it works. So I'll go here. Let's try. So you can all tell me when that looks better. I think that's, ooh, blurry, blurry. That looks okay to me. Is it my eyes? Does that look okay? All right, so let's see if we can go on. Yes, we got it right. Now, the next step is to now level. Now, look up here. See how the steps they have to go through? The 6 steps is literally walking them through what they need to do. So now you have to level the keratometer, and I was like, okay, let's see how we do that. I take that as my eye has to be able to see that. So let's try this. Let's move it that way. Do you see what's happening as I'm adjusting them? Like the person is kind of like trying to get the right spot on there. That's probably too much. There you go. Now, number 4, to align. I can move that. So that's trying to get that little spot right on my eye, right there. And then go next. You see that changes to 5 now. Now it's time to focus. See how this changes the dynamic. I could see them getting lost in doing this and totally feeling like, I'm not taking an exam, I'm just doing what I do every day. Now that I've done that, I can move on and then find my reading. Now at this point, the system is not going to help you anymore because now whatever you think the reading is, this is where the test question now comes in. I could go, okay, that doesn't feel right. Let's move this. They can adjust that and say, my reading is that 90? 90, and then 52. And then you close that out, and then come back to the question page and actually key your responses in here. So I got 90 for this one. My axis here was the 0, and then I got a 50 for the other one. So they literally just come back in here and enter the readings. And I'm going to say for this one was a 4. And move on. Now, this last question I want to show you is for like architects or those who work with real estate and you want to ask them a question. So this question is saying the planning and development of Casa Cascada. Meanwhile, that's a real place, a beautiful real place. Now, let me show you what came up on my screen. So imagine a candidate getting this and they actually get to take a tour. Say, watch that video. So they look at this landscape. They see the different angles of the house. They see you move around. They see the view. And they're like, oh, okay, that's the area. That's the development. They look around the building. So imagine how much stuff you could use this for, where they actually take a tour before they answer the question. They're like, okay, if I was going to develop this, what is this? What would I do? Where would I look? Have all of that as prompts, the stimulus for the question. And they could go, okay, that's fine. I want to see the inside before I can answer this question. So let's see the outer view, the night view. By the way, this comes with music. So they might forget they're taking a test, so we're just going to keep that on mute. Now, this goes to tell you how much you can control, how much you can provide them, things that are very similar to what they do. We use this to present, for example, plans, a building plan. They see the inside, the outside, and then you ask them a question based on the structure they're looking at, and then they provide their feedback. Now, when they're done with all of that, again, you could go on and on with the different views we have, and then you could close that out, see the different views, really, that they could look at on the inside, on the outside. Anything they do, then they could go back and say, what I've just seen, what principle is that? That doesn't look minimalism to me. It looks really opulent and big, so let's see what that is. I have no idea what this means, but I'll just choose that as my answer. But this goes to tell you how much you could change the way questions are provided, how much you could change the way you provide stimulus for them to answer the question. And that helps you get a lot of data that goes way beyond, did you pass or did you fail? So thank you.